Is the MAGA world plunging into a civil war? Is Trumpism past its peak? Or does the Republican Party like to lose, as a conservative pundit Megyn Kelly noted recently? Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Sherwood, and welcome to Factual America. Stay tuned because we're uncovering every public feud and ideological split threatening MAGA's future. From Israel loyalists to America First purists, the widening cracks reveal a base no longer united by policy, but by resentment and power struggles. By the end of this episode, hopefully you'll understand the issues threatening to break this movement beyond repair. While mainstream media may have finally woken up to the fact that the MAGA coalition seems to be splintering, even longtime watchers like yours truly have been surprised at the speed of the breakup. We may not have realized it at the time, but Charlie Kirk's assassination unleashed events and forces that have exposed old rivalries and created new ones as leading lights in MAGA world vied to be Kirk's successor, and MAGA politicians positioned themselves for a run at the presidency in 2028. And now in the last week, we've had the fallout from Tucker Carlson's soft-pedaled interview with far-right nationalist Nick Fuentes, which has plunged the MAGA movement and institutions like the Heritage Foundation into disarray, while right-wing pundits take to the airwaves to bash each other. When Marjorie Taylor Greene looks like the one adult in the room, you know you are in trouble. And no surprise that the Republicans suffered major losses in last week's elections in California, New Jersey, and Virginia. It seems that behind the polished rallies and unified slogans of the past, there's been a messy internal conflict brewing that is threatening to tear the MAGA movement apart. This isn't a battle against the left, but a war against itself. A movement that defined itself by opposing endless wars is now caught in one of its own, and it's getting more vicious and more public by the day. The MAGA base, once seen as a rock-solid monolith, is anything but. Deep ideological fault lines are cracking open, revealing a coalition at war over its own identity. If you are like me, getting your head around all the different factions and issues tearing the MAGA coalition apart can be daunting and all a little too much inside baseball for my taste. But recent events do raise a central question that hangs over the future of American politics. Will this internal conflict redefine the movement or lead to its eventual crack-up? Which breaks first? The leader, the movement, or the ideals that glue them together? For years, the world has seen the Make America Great Again movement as an unshakable army of loyal followers, all united behind one man, Donald Trump. But that image of perfect unity? It's a myth. The reality is that MAGA has always been a fragile coalition of competing factions, kind of like a political boy band whose members were happy to share the stage as long as the hits kept coming. Well, now they're having a very public and very messy breakup. These cracks are no longer just hairline fractures. These are fundamental, existential battles over the soul of the MAGA movement itself. It's a war being fought on multiple fronts, over foreign policy, over national identity, and even over its spiritual foundations. And a lot of this conflict plays out in a style that has come to define the modern right, a kind of palace intrigue where media personalities and influencers act as proxies for warring factions. Figures like Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon have become generals in this internal war, leading charges against one another on social media and on their powerful platforms. Each public feud exposes rifts that Trump's personality once managed to paper over. But it's not just about personalities. There are deep ideological rifts, and one of the most explosive is tearing apart its core foreign policy. The slogan, America First, was supposed to be the bedrock of the MAGA movement, a promise to pull the U.S. out of forever wars and focus only on American interests. But today, a foreign conflict is the very thing sparking a civil war within its ranks. The U.S. stance on Israel has become one of the most volatile issues on the right. On one side, you have the traditional Republican hawks, who see unwavering support for Israel as a strategic and moral necessity. For them, Israel first and America first are basically the same thing. But on the other side, a growing and vocal faction of America First purists see any unconditional support for a foreign nation as a betrayal of the movement's isolationist principles. This group includes white nationalist political commentator Nick Fuentes and his followers, known as Groypers, who confront mainstream conservatives they deem insufficiently nationalists. This wing, also represented by figures like Tucker Carlson, questions the billions in U.S. aid and argues that America shouldn't be entangled in Middle Eastern conflicts. This isn't quite a debate. It's a full-blown purity test, exemplified by the return of a very public feud between Candace Owens and the Daily Wire co-founder Ben Shapiro, which kicked off with her departure from the company last year after she criticized U.S. support for Israel. The pro-Israel wing tries to silence dissent by labeling any criticism as bigotry, but these efforts are only fueling the fight, especially among younger Republicans who are increasingly skeptical of the alliance. Yet figures like Tucker and Owens have been dancing very closely to the line that separates criticism of Israel from anti-Semitism, if they haven't indeed crossed that line. The irony is palpable. A movement built on ending foreign wars is now consumed by one. This battle over foreign entanglements reveals a deeper uncertainty, and that crisis is also raging on the home front over who, exactly, belongs in the Make America Great Again vision. The internal war isn't just about what America does abroad. It's about who America is at home. Another major fracture has opened between two powerful factions, the hardcore nativists and the pro-immigration tech elites. This clash was thrown into the spotlight by the growing influence and financial power of tech billionaires like Elon Musk within the MAGA sphere. The nativist wing, represented by figures like Steve Bannon, champions a hardline stance on all forms of immigration. For them, the movement is fundamentally about preserving a particular cultural identity, and they echo Trump's rhetoric about immigration, poisoning the blood of our country. But then there's the tech right, a group of libertarian-leaning Silicon Valley elites like German-born Peter Thiel, who have become major financial backers of the movement. They support welcoming highly skilled foreign workers on H-1B visas to fuel the tech industry and ensure American dominance. This has led to open warfare. When tech figures advocate for more skilled immigration, the nativist base erupts. Steve Bannon has been one of the most vocal, calling Musk a parasitic illegal immigrant and threatening on his podcast to challenge Musk's influence. Social media, especially X, has become the battleground for this feud, exposing a movement that can't decide if its primary enemy is cultural change at home or economic competition abroad. It's a struggle that pits cultural identity against economic nationalism, showing a coalition at odds over its vision of the country's future. So if the movement can't agree on foreign policy or immigration, what about its core values? Well, even its spiritual foundation is cracking. At the very heart of the MAGA identity is another brewing conflict, this one over the role of religion. Christian nationalism, the belief that America is and should be a Christian nation, has become a dominant force in parts of the right. Its proponents see the movement's goal as restoring a specific set of religious values to American public life. This ideology seeks to fuse Christianity with American civic identity, often in an exclusionary way. This push is being institutionalized by groups like the Heritage Foundation through massive policy roadmaps like Project 2025, which some would argue has been the blueprint for staffing the Trump administration with ideologically vetted conservatives. However, this push clashes with the more secular, populist elements of the MAGA base. These supporters were drawn to the movement not by religion, but by economic grievances and a deep-seated anger at political and financial elites. Their focus is on trade and fighting globalism, not on legislating a specific moral code. The rise of an organized Christian nationalist agenda risks alienating these secular populists who join the movement for different reasons, and even many other Christian conservatives who don't buy into the nationalist, more muscular political form of Christianity. It raises a fundamental question. Is MAGA primarily a religious crusade or an economic rebellion? Some of the movement's leaders want it to be both, but the two ideologies are increasingly in tension. The rhetoric of a holy war for the nation's soul doesn't always align with a class war against the globalist elite. This leads to perhaps the most glaring contradiction of all. A movement founded on fighting cancel culture is now turning on its own. From its start, the MAGA movement has defined itself as a shield against cancel culture. It rallied against attempts to deplatform and silence dissenting voices, billing itself as the last defender of free speech. Yet, in a profoundly ironic twist, the movement is now consumed by its own version of ideological purges. Figures who step out of line face immediate and intense backlash, whether it's questioning the stance on Israel or failing to show absolute loyalty. The punishment is swift, it would seem. We saw this with Candace Owens, who was pushed out of the Daily Wire for breaking with the pro-Israel consensus, while not doing herself any favors by broadcasting a litany of conspiracy theories. At the same time, far-right fringe factions like the Groypers have long actively tried to cancel mainstream conservatives like Charlie Kirk at their own events, accusing them of being rhinos, Republicans in name only, for not being extreme enough. Now Carlson is actively campaigning to unseat Trump stalwart but strong Israel supporter Lindsey Graham, the senior Republican senator from South Carolina. This cancel culture paradox reveals a movement trapped in a self-defeating cycle. It's caught between the desire for ideological purity and the need to maintain a broad coalition. By demanding total loyalty, the movement becomes more brittle and less able to handle internal disagreement. The very weapon it accused its enemies of using is now being used to police its own ranks, creating a climate of fear. So what does all this infighting mean for the future? What happens when the one man holding it all together is no longer at the center in 3 years' time? The MAGA movement is at a crossroads, facing a crisis not from the outside, but from within. This internal war is being fought on every front, a foreign policy split between isolationists and hawks, a demographic battle between nativists and tech elites, and a spiritual struggle between Christian nationalists and secular populists. Add to that a cancel culture paradox that risks alienating free speech warriors, and you have a movement that appears to be at war with itself. These are not minor disagreements. They are foundational rifts over the very meaning of MAGA. For years, Donald Trump's personality was the glue that held these disparate factions together. But as these internal battles grow more intense, that glue is being tested. The coalition is fracturing, as seen from the fallout from Tucker Carlson's platforming of Nick Fuentes. Whether this internal war leads to a complete reinvention, a slow decline, or something else entirely is the question hanging over American politics. What do you think? Is this really the beginning of the end for the MAGA movement, or just growing pains? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to help more people get informed on these crucial shifts in our political landscape, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to see it. This is Factual America, signing off.